Hello cake buddies, it's your cake engineer. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'll be showing you how to properly trim a square cake. Now what we have here is a square cake that has been stacked, 3 layers stacked for a wedding. Now in trimming square cakes, one thing you need to understand is that the edges needs to be perfect. And when we're talking about the edges being perfect, we're talking about the edges being at angle 90. So when you want to trim a square cake, after stacking it, the first thing you need to make sure you have is that you need a very good trimming knife, very sharp trimming knife that will make your trimming process easy. And then you also need to have a scraper. I prefer using metal scrapers because with this I can easily cut through without the fear of it breaking or cutting through a plastic. So when you have that, then you can start. Another thing you also need is a square. Now with the square, you can be able to actually check if your edges are at angle 90 degrees, which is very, very important. Now for us to trim, first things first, you have to be able to set your scraper properly, making sure that it sits comfortably on the board. Then you can pick your trimming from the top. When you are doing this, you make sure that your scraper is in position. So you're trimming, you're making sure that the knife is touching the scraper while you're trimming. Now this helps to guide your trimming process so that you're not trimming too much into the cake or you're not trimming away from the cake, thereby giving you an angle 90, which is what is very, very important. So we're going to trim down the edge to get that 90 degrees on this part. Now one thing you need to do is that when you're doing this, you should concentrate more on having the edge closer to you, properly trimmed at 90 degrees. You don't have to worry so much about this other part, because if you do that, you're going to be fixed between trying to get that right and this side at the same time. So once I've done this and I'm sure that this side is on 90 degrees from the scraper, I will now move to the next part. Now when I move to the next part, I'll do the same thing again. I'll just get this point and then I trim down. Now while you're trimming down, you make sure you're feeling the trimming knife touching your scraper. It's very, very important, and that's why I recommend that you use a metal scraper, a stainless scraper, because that will help you get that done easily. So with this, I'm done with the second part. Now one thing I'll do is that I'll check to be sure that it's properly squared, and then I'll move to the third angle and I'll do the same thing carefully. It's very important that before you cover your cakes with fondant, the cake has to be properly trimmed, especially your square cakes, because when you're covering your cake with fondant, it's just like you're tying the cake with a wrapper. It's important that the trimming is done perfectly. If not, if your edges are not straight, at the end of the day, your fondant is just going to take the shape of what your cake looks like, and that is not going to give you a perfectly covered fondant cake. So I've trimmed the third part. Now this is the last one. So I'm going to take this with my scraper again, then I'll follow it from the top and make sure I trim down gradually, making sure, like I said again, that the knife is touching the scraper while I am trimming. This is actually very, very important. But when I have that done, I've trimmed the 4 edges. If you look at this, it's not perfect yet, but it's close to being perfect. So the next thing I need to do is to check again that they are all okay. Now you know this is a rich fruit cake, so we're taking it easy with the trimming. Your knife also has to be sharp, and another important thing is that the knife has to be firm. There are some that are not very firm, so when you're trimming, sometimes it acts as if it's not really straight anymore. It's bending. But when you have a knife that is actually firm, it makes it easy for your trimming to be done perfectly. Now with that, I will now check all the edges to make sure that it's properly trimmed. Check this edge, move to this, I'll check. Now because we're trimming from this side, and I concentrated more on trimming the cake from this side. The next thing I need to do now is that I will do a reverse motion. That is, I'll check from this side. I'll check from this side. Now when I'm checking from this side, I'll do this, because the first time we checked from here, now we're checking from the other side. So I'll do the same thing here. I'll place it, making sure that it's sitting flat on the board, because automatically once it's sitting flat on the board, that gives us angle 90 degrees. So I'll do this and I'll check, take it back to this side, I'll check again, and then we're done with trimming the edges. With that, we have perfectly trimmed square edges for our cake. Now the next thing we need to do is how to level up the top properly. Now for us to be able to level up the top of the cake, we are actually going to make sure that we're using a plumb. Now a plumb, a spirit level, or whatever you call it, but as an engineer I can actually call it a spirit level if I want to. Now if you get this, one thing you need to understand about this is that once the top of the cake is completely flat, then the bubble you have here should be at the center. So for the bubble here to be at the center, you need to make sure that the top of the cake is flat. And for you to get that, that also needs you to trim the top. Another important thing you need to know is that the surface of the surface that your cake is actually sitting on, you need to also check that the surface is flat. That is very, very important, because if the surface is not flat and you end up balancing the top of your cake to be flat, then you're going to have an issue, because the surface is not giving you the right result. So you have to check both your surface, and you need to check your surface and the cake you're trying to trim. So when we place it on the cake, we look at this now, it's not at the center, which clearly tells you that the cake top is not flat. Now for you to easily do this, all you need to do is to pick it up and balance it first with your hands. So if I take this up a little, that tells you that the correction is not on this part. But if I take this up a little, it moves to the center. That is to tell us that this part needs to go down, because if this part goes down, here automatically balances it up. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim this edge a little. Now another hack to this is that while you're trimming the edge, especially if the cake is so soft and you don't want the edges to break off, you can support it with the scraper, so that when you're trimming it, you have something that is pushing it back. This helps you to easily trim the top without having any issue or that fear of the edge of the cake breaking off. So I'm going to trim this now, trim it gradually. You notice I'm not doing so much, I'm just trying to do it gradually, so that after we have done this, we can now check with the plumb. Now if you look at this now, it's actually close to the center. That's to tell you that we have almost gotten the top of the cake flat, but we have to adjust it a little. If I leave this a little, okay, no, this part is not supposed to go up, that means we are supposed to work on this part. So what I'm going to do now is to trim again. I'll trim gently again, support with my scraper so that I don't have any issues with the edges breaking off, and then I will just place this on top to check if it's okay. If I press this down, it moves a little to the center, so that's to tell you that we still have to do a little trimming on this side. So let me do that now. And then we'll balance it up, and that's perfect. So that is how to actually trim your square cake to that perfection, so that when it's covered with fondant, you're going to have your cake straight and sitting upright. Thank you for joining us today on this video, and don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. See you on the next video.